Greeting exiles. If you're anything like me, Path of Exile is full of mechanics you just can't get enough of. Instant kill lightning enemies hidden among blue auras, blue fire and blue attacks. XP loss and death reverting hours of grinding. And stun, eating up inputs and leaving you stuck, promptly dead. In fact, I love these mechanics so much that I had an idea, a special idea. The idea that one day, one man could not just be stunned by enemies, but by himself. As with all great ideas on paper, it turned out to be impossible. I tried blood magic, Skuld's Bridle, gluttony. I spent exiled after exiled experimenting, and then I did the most basic of searching. Turns out, GGG consider all means of self-stun to be a bug. Something about infinite loops. My dreams were torn apart simply for game and server stability. So, we had to settle for the next best thing. If I can't stun myself, I'll just make it so that everything else does. Step 1. We set our stun threshold to be based off energy shield instead of life, using the unique ring Valerium. Step 2. We set our energy shield to 0. I used the keystone the agnostic, but there are other uniques you could try. With our energy shield at 0, any attack with any damage causes a stun. Of course, we have a new problem now, not dying. We can't exactly use skills to help with this, what with the whole constantly being stunned thing, and we need a lot of life, so we stack strength. We use the unique boots Alberon's Warpath, a belt with increased attributes, and the Chieftain Ascendancy to scale up our strength. Since we're going Chieftain, 5 spells make the most sense, and we're going to scale those off strength as well. We use the Iron Fortress unique body armor to make our strength scale better, then use the Repentance Gloves to turn all of that strength into spell damage. We want a Scepter with spell damage per strength, and that way we're double dipping. I bought this one for 2 exalts. It's probably worth closer to 10. You could try crafting one, but I don't know how any of that works, so don't ask me for advice. No, seriously, don't ask me. My first ever attempt at making a build was one built upon making sure everything stunned me. You think I'll be a source for good advice? What I do know is you want all of the best block, regen, armor, and max resist nodes you can take. We do skip out on spell block nodes because Iron Fortress kind of makes it hot garbage. Due to the agnostic, we will also need to take the blood magic keystone so we can leap slam and enduring cry even though we're going to be sitting on 0 mana. For damage, I have no idea. Igniting enemies and then using the immolate support on our 6L seems good. The optimal setup would be 4 blue, 1 red, 1 green for greater projectiles, but I gave up after 2,500 chromatics. So, we have a build that gets stunned by everything, is barely tanky, and doesn't do great damage. Is it any good? What do you think? Jump, jump, jump! Look, it's not as bad as I thought. It can map, and while its clear speed isn't fast, it does scale okay. The larger the group, the more stun, the greater the DPS. Tier 16 maps are fine if you don't mind ignoring the boss. Heisting is also fine unless you try and kill things. Many bosses are a real challenge, but ones that rely on physical are surprisingly easy. This is the first lab run I genuinely found easy. Would I recommend it? God, no. Can it be improved? Probably by anyone with a head attached, but if you like turning the worst mechanics into just the worst mechanics, I've got a bit at the end here talking about the items and the path of building is linked below. Thanks for watching. So this bit here at the end is just sort of me going through a map and showing you that, 1, I'm not full of shit, and 2, just sort of like walk you through a bit more casually all of the different parts of the build for those who are more interested in all the different specifics, like for example the flasks and what mods I tried to get. I mentioned that it cost 20x for this build, or over 20x. I think I mentioned it. If I didn't, it cost over 20x. A good chunk of that was just the 6 link of the chest piece, which single-handedly cost me 20x. 17x, sorry. But the problem with that is I haven't even made it a good 6 link, right? Like I mentioned it in the video, but it doesn't have a green socket, which means it's really basically a 5 link with extra fire pen, which I'll go through in a moment when I'm able to stop paying attention. It genuinely does clear maps like acceptably well, and probably the nicest thing about this build is for any maps that aren't like actually difficult, you don't even need to do that much. You can just kind of let things hit you. So if you want to watch a movie, watch some Netflix, so I don't know, listen to an audiobook while also doing a map clearing, I really think that this is the build for you. Actually, that's a lie. This is definitely not the build for you, but it is an advantage of the build. You really don't need to do much. You know, spamming my flasks to make clearing a little quicker, and just for safety, but really it doesn't matter. It isn't even too bad at res, you know, when they decide to attack you. It's really just bosses that well, I don't want to spoil too much. If you have any questions about it, I'll be responding to them below in the comments. And if you are interested in more, well, let's just say stupid fucking builds, I have a whole reservoir of them. This is my actual first build, but I have a friend who I won't name him, is really good at coming up with some terrible but great ideas, and I've always thought he'd be worth sharing them. So if you are interested in seeing more stuff like this, you know, just let me know. Alrighty. Right. So, let's walk through this step by step. First with the flasks. We've got a lot of armor stacking, so it makes sense to get a granite flask in there, help with the physical mitigation. The main thing I was looking for is reduced charge uses and shock. Shock seems to be a way that I often die. The bismuth flask. Honestly, I really should change this flask to something else, probably just like a amethyst for chaos res. I don't really know what to do in this slocket. I figure helps me deal with LE weakness or any curses I'm not paying attention to, and since it has removed poison on it, I just left it for now. Sulfur flask is kind of a must-have. It gives you extra regen, and with the consecrated ground, so it's pretty good. Obviously, any additional damage also helps nicely. Quicksilver flask is also pretty obvious. More move speed is good. And then we've got the Dying Sun, because more damage. It's one of the few ways we have to actually help with that. Going through the items, we'll start with the ones I mentioned in the rest of the video. We've got the Alberon's Warpath here with a max roll increased strength. One really cool thing that happened to me when I was making this build is when I did the lab, I rolled... well, first I rolled can't be stunned if I've already been stunned, which was really bad. But then I rolled this, which turns out to be probably bits. So if this build was actually good, this Warpath would probably be valuable. The build isn't, and so it isn't, but you know, if you can get that enchant on Alberons, definitely do. The Valerium ring that I've got is also really solid. Getting resistance in this build is quite difficult, so finding one that has all resist on it and increased strength is just so good for this build, and it's probably a reason that it's borderline functional. I didn't mention this unique in the video since it's not really a critical part, but getting an Astromantis is just so good. For one, we need to get like a ton of int to equip Repentance, but for two, and probably moreover, it helps us stack strength. Nothing too special about our Iron Fortress, just good stats and a 6 link. We've got Control Destruction, Cast when Stunned, Magma Orb, Fire Pen, Immolate, and more Fire Pen because we don't have a green socket. Well, again, nothing too special. You're really looking for resists in life. With the Repentance, I missed these gems. We'll go over them. This is also a flex slot. Here I put Blazing Salvo, multiple projectiles, and Immolate just for a little added damage, but frankly I don't really know what would be optimal for this setup. Over to the gloves, we've got second wind support into It died! I probably lost endurance stacks. That's perfect. Lets me go through things quickly. You know what? I'm not going to waste any time in the video. I think you got the meme of me going through it. We've got increased duration, second wind, anger, and enduring cry. We're just trying to make enduring cry last as long as we possibly can. And helping, using the Chieftain Ascendancy, we can get some additional endurance charge post usage. So endurance charges really aren't a problem. The only real role you're looking for this is the lowest possible spell damage you can get. Nothing else in it matters too much. I mentioned the Scepter, which just seems like bonkers good for this build. Particularly because it's got both Socketed Gems efficacy and unbanned ailments, so it just made sense to put some kind of ignite seal on it. I chucked on Fireball, just seemed like the one most likely to ignite, but again, I'm not really an optimizer when it comes to damage or what skill gems are best, so I just whacked on Fireball, Combustion, and of course Custom Stun. Second ring, this is just for the stats. The main ones are Strength, Resists, and I needed a little int. You probably need a little int as well, somewhere on one of your items, and this was the only socket I could find. Socket that we could find. I have several backup rings. I had got an unset one because I thought I might flex around with anger, but turned out I didn't. In the helmet, there's a few enchants you could go for. In the end, I've stuck with the Leap Slam attack speed. We're slow enough as is, so making Leap Slam better is good. The other one I considered was Enduring Cry duration, but ultimately it didn't seem like that was going to give me enough defense to be worth it. Again, Resist, Strength. Nothing too crazy, life. For this one, I put on the Flammability Curse for the cast when stunned. Stone Golem, just because I had nowhere else to put it, and this ring is better than my unset ring. And Molten Shell, which is the Gar skill I've gone with. It's just, every so often you don't take any real damage, plus you do a bit more damage. Don't know if it's best. I definitely don't think you want a Mortal Core. Maybe there's an argument for it, because it helps more with spells, but Molten Shell seems to be performing pretty solidly for me, for the most part. Lastly, we've got the shield. This one is probably the best shield you can get because you've got the Scorch enemies, which means you're getting a bit more damage when you block their attacks. And of course, when you're fighting a boss or a rare enemy, hopefully at some point you'll block one of their attacks and then you're doing extra fire damage to them. I wanted to get a bit of regen on this as well as resists in life, and also a bit of chaos resist because, you know, chaos resist matters. There's probably a few other good ones. It's a lot easier to get resist on other kinds of shields, but if you are able to get a Scorch shield, it's pretty good. Faster attacks, Leap Slam, Fortify. None of this is too surprising. I think every Leap Slam I've seen has that combination, so chuck those on. There's a few other things I want to talk about in the passive tree. I considered going Physic Convert Viz. I'm sure there's a way to make that good. It might even be better than the standard way, but for the time being, I've gone just the straight fire spell. Second thing to consider is you probably want to try and get a Lethal Pride. My one isn't really great at the moment. I can get another, say, 100 or so strength if I can roll a good one. Haven't spent that many divines on it, but you're looking for things like reduced extra crit, 20% increased strength, and plus 20 strength. So this one obviously isn't particularly great. Plus physical damage doesn't matter. Totem damage doesn't matter. But I haven't got a better one for this socket at the moment. Got a large cluster drill here. I went for better flammability and more area of effect. At some point I will probably eventually make my way to this one, although I think this one's probably the weakest of the three. It was mostly about just getting more medium sockets so I can get the extra max LE resist and the more regen life while we're stationary. The max resist really does matter. We haven't got any spell block, so when it comes to spells, our best defense is as much LE resist as we can manage. So high regen plus high max resist is really, really important. I think that covers it for most of the important things. There's a few other skills here. I've regretted the crap out of this build trying to figure out what's really good, what works for it and what doesn't. I think when you look at the path of building, you probably have some ideas of what to improve. You know, I wanted initially to come up here and take some of these nodes and maybe even take this cluster node, but end up being I just dropped it more for life and regen, which just helps us so much more. I think that covers everything that needs to be covered. I hope you enjoyed the video, or at least found it entertaining. And yeah, I hope you have a fantastic day.